KMC HD3 Detroit, KMPS HD3 Seattle, WBMX HD3 Boston.
And on AOL Radio and Yahoo Launchcast. Psychic Radio is now CBS Radio's The Sky. Back to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno. Call now 248-545-SOUL. New skyradio.com.
Do certain people have a special ability to photograph paranormal events? If so, why? Can a deep interest in the paranormal make you more prone to paranormal experiences?
Hey there, and welcome to the 482nd edition of Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno. I'm Ben, and those profound questions came from my co-host and partner in the paranormal, my dad. We're soon catching up to our 500th edition.
Yeah.
This evening we bring you a guest who has some similar seniority in the paranormal as my dad, but who has come to different conclusions. We welcome your calls if you desire to favor us with your voice. The number is 248-545-7685. Again, that's 248-545-7685.
Well, before we begin, a reminder that we will have a drawing on our Monday, October 7th show for 2 free family packs of 4 tickets each to the first New England UFO Conference in Leominster, Massachusetts on Saturday, October 26th. Among the speakers will be some of the UFO experts who are regulars on our show, Stanton Friedman, Kathleen Martin, Peter Robbins, among others. And Ben and I will be there ourselves to interview them before a live audience, and they'll take questions from the audience as well.
We'll figure out how to do that at some point. All you have to do is enter... all you have to do to enter is send an email to us at paul@behindtheparanormal.com or drop us a snail mail at Behind the Paranormal, care of WOON 1240 AM, 985 Park Avenue, Woonsocket, Rhode Island 02895. Please include your name, address, and phone number. That is first and last name. There's no charge to enter since we're already receiving entries from everywhere. We should point out that the drawing is only for the tickets. It is not an all-expenses-paid trip. It does not provide transportation or accommodations if you win and happen to live in Australia. And again, the drawing will take place on the air on Monday, October 7th.
Okay. Now to our guest, finally. Jim Kelly is a native of western New York State, born in Allegheny, New York, in 1949. As Jim puts it, quote, "My gift is my ability to photograph spirits. Since completing my story and posting it on the internet, I've gotten a lot of positive feedback. I have been a guest speaker at the Hinsdale, New York Haunted House, and I've been to Lilydale on 2 occasions at their request showing my photographs." Lilydale, by the way, is a spiritualistic community in western New York, not far from Lake Erie. Jim and his wife Sherry live in Olean, New York. You can find out more about Jim at www.livingwiththeparanormal.weebly.com. Weebly is Weebly.
Jim Kelly, welcome to Behind the Paranormal.
Welcome. How you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing great. So,
Great.
You have had a really paranormal life, quote unquote. And what does that actually mean?
Well, it was not by my choosing. It was all sort of accidental, but it happened to me, and I have accepted it. I was a walk-on in a documentary movie at the Hinsdale house, and then rumors were that the house was going to be knocked down, so I went and I took a picture of the house. 6 months later, I went down the road where the hanging tree is. That's where people were hung, and I took a picture of that also. And that's where it all started, is when I took a picture of the place known as the hanging tree, and that is a live, active vortex. And we took the photograph when we got home, and we got looking at it, and things just weren't right in there. There was a lot of color in the photo where there shouldn't have been any color at all. Then my nephew, he blew them up to an 8x10 on his computer, and sure enough, I had captured souls from different periods in time. There's a couple Roman people in there. One is swinging a sword. One is holding like a javelin or scepter or whatever. Then there's a couple demonic-looking things in there. There's a whole circle of human heads, and just really bizarre stuff.
Did you say Romans?
Yes, Romans back in the days of Christ, back in that period of time. They've got their white robes on and the whole thing. Now, one thing that's in my story that isn't in my story, I finished that in August of 2012. Since that time, my photographs have gotten more and more angelic or spiritual is what my wife would call them, where more and more people are showing up with the white robes and stuff, and a lot of these are showing up in the vortex. And
that one you mentioned in Hinsdale.
Yes, right.
Okay. How big is that? How wide is it? I mean, physically.
The vortex, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, it's probably 30 or 40 feet. It's where there was an actual hanging tree where the settlers back in the 1800s would rob people, and a lot of them got hung in this tree. So all that's left of the tree now is just like dead branches and few remaining things like that.
That's why New Englanders are uneasy with New Yorkers, I guess.
Yeah.
How would you define a vortex?
How would I define a vortex?
Yeah, one thing I want to do tonight is you and I are of a similar, as Ben says, seniority in this field.
Okay, I would say
I kind of wanted to see what your definitions are compared. And you know, we respect all views on this show.
Mm-hmm.
We have our own. We could be wrong. So,
yeah, I would say that a vortex is a portal, an opening from this world into another world.
Mm-hmm.
And the day I took this first photo, we went back 20 minutes later. Characters and individuals completely changed. They were not the same ones that were there as when I took the first photograph.
Very interesting. I've run into similar situations myself.
Uh-huh. And anybody that's out there in the listening audience, if they know of anyone that has ever taken a picture of a vortex, I would sure like to get a hold of them, because I'd like to compare what I've got in comparison to what they've got.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just, and it hasn't stopped. It's still going on to this day. But I can't go out and I can't take a normal photograph, like at a wedding or a graduation. I have to let my wife do it.
Like
it can
ever?
Be very embarrassing.
You can never take an ordinary photograph?
I haven't been able to, no, because without the spirit somewhere showing up on the photograph. And it doesn't matter if I'm using my digital camera or if I'm using my video. Okay. I did a Civil War burial service last year, and I told the guy, I said, okay, I'll videotape it, but here's what I'm capable of doing. Don't be surprised if this or that shows up. Well, lo and behold, things were showing up, coming out of the tombstones, out of the grave. I've got Polaroid pictures of that, and he wanted 15 copies to put on a DVD, which my son puts those things on there for me. And it started out with 15 copies, and it ended up being 30 or 40.
Really? I'm going to stop. I'm going to let Ben finish his questions here, so I'll have my chance.
Yeah. There's always time. So, why do you feel that you have a talent or maybe curse for paranormal photography?
Well, I was
told. Why
do
you feel it? Why you?
Well, that's what I wondered. I thought, of all the millions of people in the world, why was it me that's getting these photographs?
Well, there are others.
So I went to a psychic, and I showed her my best photograph that I had, and she said that I was an empathetic. I had kinetic energy, and these spirits related to me. They got attached to me and were, in a sense, pleased that I recognized them in the spiritual world, somebody from the physical world. And ever since then, I can do it. And my whole purpose of putting that story out there on the internet, and by the way, if it wasn't for my wife, the story probably would have never got out there, because she's good with the computer. She made the website for me. She got my story out there, and I've had gosh knows how many positive comments back on it. And that was my point, is to tell people that once you're dead and you're gone, it's not over. I mean, there's another life out there, a parallel world right next to ours.
So these experiences, is that why you think, is that why you got into the paranormal, or were you always interested in the paranormal?
I was always interested in it, and but I never thought it would lead me to where it's led me now.
That's funny. Jim and I encountered one another in a rather odd way. Once in a great while, with bated breath, I take a look at what they're saying about my books on Amazon.com. Now, one day not long ago, I happened to see a good review of Footsteps in the Attic by a Jim Kelly, only a Jim Kelly from Texas, who said he headed a paranormal group that has started to use our methods and theories, multiverse thinking rather than the more traditional spiritualism. I thought it might be interesting to have him on the show to see how all that was going. I did an internet search for Jim Kelly and the paranormal, and when I emailed it him, it turned out to be another Jim Kelly, another paranormal Jim Kelly.
Yeah.
Now, so Jim Kelly from New York. Now, we talked on the phone, and voila, here he is with us this evening. So that's how we made this connection. So, Jim, before we get into theory, let's talk about the pictures you sent. And I'd love to see some of these others, because it's pretty amazing. What you say. Two of these are posted at the Talking Points page on BehindTheParanormal.com. At the main page, if anybody happens to be listening on a computer, I know a lot of people do, click on the show Talking Points on the left from the main page or any page, and then the 2013 shows, and this show is right at the top of the column there. And you'll see two pictures. Listeners can follow along as we talk about these. That's the trouble with radio if you're listening on a radio.
Yeah.
Photo number 1 is taken at the intersection of two dirt roads. It has a line of dump trucks in the background. In the center is a tree with some very interesting balls of light. Where is that this vortex you were talking about? Or if not, where was it taken and what's the backstory of this picture?
Right where you see the orbs, to the far right, you can see about 3 big branches coming out, and that's actually where the vortex was. I was actually across from it on that dirt road when I took the photo of these orbs.
Oh, so this isn't in the middle of town or anything?
No, this is out in the country.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
All right. What were all the dump trucks doing there?
They're paving the main road, which would have been called Wagner Hill, up there. Because this road you're looking at, the dirt one, that's a dead end. That goes up where the haunted house in Hinsdale is, and it just ends up there.
Okay.
But if you notice, the top orb of the 3 is almost starting to manifest into a face.
All right.
What do you? All right.
Okay, I want to get him up here. So.
Oh yeah, you want to take a look at the pictures. All right. So I see that the actually let's
Well, in other words, so how long has this been going on? While I get.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to ask that
this
too.
This has been going on for almost 2 years. It'll be 2 years in November.
Okay.
And I'm not really an orb specialist.
Yeah.
But in the last 4 or 5 months, I've been getting a lot of orbs. Now, whenever I go up on that road, there's 2 orbs that constantly follow me, and I photograph them. So I'm thinking that they're either soulmates or they're connected in some way. But I photograph them constantly.
Well, we actually are coming up on our break here. Sorry to interrupt
we
here.
are.
Yeah.
Just fascinated here.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to continue this after the break. You're listening to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno on CBS New Sky Radio, and our very interesting guest this evening, Jim Kelly from Western New York, photographer, paranormal extraordinaire, and we will be right back, so stick with us.
Seeking guidance in areas of love, career, and family? Kimmy Rose and Friends provides access to gifted psychics and is just a call away at 1-888-626-7386. Visit KimmyRose.com. That's Kimmy with an I-E. And click on the link to Kimmy Rose and Friends under Kimmy's picture on the right. Choose your advisor and click on their link below. If they're not immediately available, schedule an appointment with them. Kimmy Rose and Friends, connecting you with psychic advisors Kimmy Trust.
Oh, brother, I can't get through. I've been trying hard to reach you 'cause I don't know what to do. Oh, brother, I can't believe it's true. I'm so scared about the future, and I wanna talk to you. Oh, I wanna talk to you. You can take a picture of something you see. In the future, where will I be? You could climb a ladder up to the sun.
Psychic Radio is now CBS Radio's The Sky. Back to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno. Call now 248-545-SOUL. New skyradio.com. Believe.
Believe it or not, and we're back to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno. And with us is Jim Kelly with talking about the paranormal photography and the crazy paranormal things that happen to him while he takes photos anywhere he goes. And right now we're looking at on our Talking Points page of our show website, behindtheparanormal.com, and I'm looking at one of these photos that has 3 orbs in it, and they're all so clear. I mean, I don't even know how anybody could say this is dust.
Well,
I don't know. I can't.
As one, and I always say this in lectures, I learned photography at your expense, Jim, in the U.S. military. And however, I must say that after over 40 years of looking at these paranormal photographs, these are good candidates, I'd say, for a legitimate paranormal photograph, and without having it tested and all this.
Yeah. Have you ever sent these to photo experts?
No, never done that.
All ours goes through that, but I don't think anybody can say this is definitely.
Yeah.
But they can say they shouldn't be there.
Yeah, exactly.
And that to me means something.
Yeah.
All right. So did you?
Oh yeah. Do you feel compelled to stop and take pictures at certain times or certain places without really knowing why?
Yes, I've gone through that. I go through that a lot with my wife, Sherry.
We were saying during the break, this must be unbelievably annoying if it's your daughter's wedding or something.
Yeah. And everyone will go and get in the act.
Yeah, we're very careful where we go with the camera and what.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll just go out on a photo shoot of my own, to see what I can get and stuff.
Yeah.
Then I get them all blown up into an 8x10, and then the real good ones I get 11x14s.
Okay. Now I'm looking at the second photo on our Talking Points page at behindtheparanormal.com, and there's a ceiling fan and a bright light, which seems to be diffused with a hint of some orbs. What's the background on that picture?
Okay, our little Pomeranian woke us up one night, barking, sat in our doorway, staring up at the fan. We got up. There were 3 orbs floating around the ceiling. So I grabbed the camera real quick, and that's what I ended up with. You can see the one is almost starting to manifest into a face. He's actually going into the stovepipe of our pellet stove.
Okay. Now, they're all, as I just mentioned, I learned photography professionally, and for 35 years as a journalist I've used it. But, I guess you still doesn't mean you know everything. There's all kinds of questions that might arise from the viewpoint of photography, and we ask the same ones when we ourselves get strange stuff in photos. What kind of camera? You mentioned you have a standard camera.
Oh, yeah.
You mentioned a digital.
Yeah, it's just a cheap digital Polaroid. That's all it is. Nothing fancy about it. Nothing.
I didn't know Polaroid was still in business.
Yeah. When I first started doing this, believe it or not, I was using a $15 track phone that had the camera, right in it.
Mm-hmm.
But the photos, they came out okay, but they had like the little pixels in them. But so I don't do that anymore. I just go with the straight digital.
I started out in 1971 with a Kodak Instamatic.
Oh, I remember those.
Camera.
Yeah.
Remember those? That was high tech.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you didn't have to wind the film. You just threw the cartridge in there, and bingo, boy, it was high tech. But that's how I started out and got my first pictures on that one. There are again. Do you make any notes of the kind of camera or the lighting conditions or the time of day or anything like that? I know you don't do this professionally, but I don't know. The thing with digital cameras, Jim, as I'm sure you know, is that they will interpret things. They will try to make sense out of things like this. I have seen, and as I'm sure you have, dust on the lens. There are orb pictures that I have that I know for a fact are snowflakes. I took them myself in snowy conditions.
Yeah.
Things of that kind. So I assume you are careful with that.
I'm very careful with that and the video both. Now the one orb here where the ceiling fan is, I've got the 8x10 in front of me. If you take that and you turn it left, so it's up oblong.
Yeah.
In the blade of the fan is a family sitting there in the 1800s. There's a woman sitting down.
The blade on the right,
if
you're looking at it, right side?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, there's a family there. They got a pet dog that's down at the very bottom, and the man standing behind the woman with his hands like on her shoulders.
I see something in there. Okay, let's...
You have to open up Photoshop.
Let's get into some theory here. All right, orbs, the nature of orbs.
Mm-hmm.
One of the problems I had when I first started out was, and I was a seminary student. I started out with theological preconceptions when I went on the first case. As a matter of fact, what I was trying to do, as we discussed on the phone, was find out if maybe ghosts, which were well known to pretty much all cultures and everywhere and geographically, were what might have been interpreted by Catholic doctrine at the time as souls in purgatory. I wondered if there was a connection. And I did not find anything of the kind from day one, but I was intrigued by what I did find, and that was no indication whatsoever that these people were dead. And I'm talking about this, my first case, which was 1971 in this little abandoned village in northeast Connecticut. It was so abandoned it was all overgrown. It had been around till about the 1890s. The sounds of farm life, strange pictures, streaks moving through the trees, animals, barking and mooing and this sort of thing, and the farm implements banging together. Daily life, sounds of daily life when there was no one we could see. Ox cart going by with wheels and hoof beats, and the guy yelling, and the whip cracking. I mean, are these dead people? I mean, are there ghosts of ox carts? And that's what really kind of got me. So as you take pictures, if I got pictures of somebody who appeared to be a family from the 19th century, I don't know. My interpretation might be a parallel world in which they're still alive. But your interpretation is a little different, and you live in deepest, darkest spiritualist country, not too far from where the Fox sisters were carrying on in the 1840s, and modern spiritualism got started. And I speak of it with respect because we could be wrong, but I don't know. I've just never seen it that way. So, in your point of view, is there a physical world and a spirit world with all these different people in it? I mean, how do you see the universe? I mean, how do you see that? What's behind all this, in your opinion?
Well, there's definitely a universe parallel right to us, whether they passed on or they're actually living in there. Yeah. Because, like I said, I've taken another picture of the vortex, and there's like angel women in it, like sitting on branches with the white robes and the whole thing. And that's got me baffled. And the one, I sent you 4 pictures, and the one isn't on there, but the one down at the bottom of the road, there is a creature right in the middle of the field. He's got pointed ears, and he's got a pig face. And I was told by an anthropologist, archaeologist, ghost excavator, that this is a manitor. He's half beast or whatever. And this same gentleman is coming back to our area the end of this month, and he wants to look at more of my pictures because I've got some other strange-looking creatures like Bigfoot in a couple of my photos, and he can't wait to get back here to look at them.
That's very interesting. Now, this is a good time maybe to introduce Father Alphonsus Trebold. Now, you live in Olean, New York, which is the home of St. Bonaventure University.
Right.
And I, in 1973, was out there as a seminary student because several of us went out there from my seminary, and we were considering asking our bishops to send us to St. Bonaventure, which had a major seminary, as we called it at the time. And that's when I had known Father Alphonsus, or was getting to know him through Ed and Lorraine Warren. Now, he was a great researcher in the paranormal. Was already ordained, so we didn't get in trouble the way I did. And he was a Franciscan. And did you know him?
I didn't know him, no, but that's where Alex Tanis came into play, too.
Okay, well,
through Father Alfonso.
Could you tell us about that?
Well, he's the one that actually went up to the house, Father Alfonso and Alex Tanis, and they did an exorcism up there at the house. Well,
this Hinsdale house?
Yes.
Okay.
It worked for a while, but then about 6 months later, things just started in again. And it finally drove the family out of there, and they left.
See, that's what I found. And I was involved in a number of exorcisms of people in the context of a psychiatric hospital, all very hush-hush, of course. And there we go, Ben. And I was just really under the impression that something more was going on here. It seemed to me that the people who were involved in, who were the victims, were almost bonding with whatever this entity was. It certainly were entities. And I'm just really, I don't know, there was so much more to it. The theology just didn't do it for me. What say you on negative entities, parasites that are customarily known as demons, whatever you want to call them? What's your opinion on that, and have you run into them even in your photographs?
I've got some nasty-looking things, yes, in some of my photographs, but I've also got a very strong religious faith, and I think that's for protecting me, because these spirits actually followed us to our home here where we had them in the house.
That can happen, yeah.
And it was suggested to me, we'll put sea salt around. I thought, well, yeah, if you do that, you're going to keep them trapped in here. They won't get out. So I just had a talk with them one night. I said, hey, if you're going to stay here, you're going to be decent. Otherwise, we have not had a problem. There is one spirit dog that still comes in and plays with my little dog. We've called her Snowball. She's a little white Maltese, and she shows up in a lot of my photographs, and it doesn't matter where I go. She shows up in a lot of them. And there's one person, he wears a robe, got a like a belt, and he's always reading a book. So my wife has called him the scholar, because he's always reading something.
So if he's
and
a spirit,
sit on tree branches.
Okay.
What's that?
No, I'm just saying, so there are. See, this is what bothered me. Are there spirits of books? I mean, and another thing that bothered me is, how can you be you without your body? Because your body's part of you. So in what I've run into, and I've had physical contacts with what I believe were parasites in the midst of poltergeist cases that seems to have bodies and bone structure. You couldn't see them very well, or if at all, but they, we have a physical tussle. I was trying to protect a little girl, and that bit bothered me. I mean, if these are spirits, why this? So, I mean, what in your view is the nature of these spirits? And maybe you haven't thought a lot about this, because you seem like you're a person who simply has this gift and just.
Well, I don't know if they're caught in limbo, or if
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I don't know. They're just sharing my thoughts.
But boy, I wish I could sit down with you sometime and show you the photographs I've got. They would absolutely knock your socks off.
I would love to see that. Okay. So have you actually investigated cases, or what kind of cases have you run into lately?
I haven't investigated cases, but I've had some paranormal people and groups want to sort of use me. They want me to track them down with my camera, and then they want to take all the credit with their EVPs, and I don't morally feel that that's right.
Well, I agree with you. We're going to stop right there for another break, and we'll get back on that subject when we come back. You're listening to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno on CBS News Sky Radio. We'll be right back with Jim Kelly in just a minute, so stay with us.
Discover your spirit. Listen to Spirit Guide Radio, where leading spiritual experts serve as guides to nourish your soul. Every weeknight from 7 to 11 p.m. Eastern. Heidi Hollis, The Outlander. The Zodiac Girls with Solaris, Laura, and Kira. Ask Dr. Doug with Dr. Doug Lear. PSI 911 with Katie, Rhonda, and Christy. Life by Number with Celeste. And Your Reiki Journey with Heidi Harrison. Spiritually Speaking Radio for the soul. CBS Radio's The Sky. Believe.
Now I've been happy lately, thinking about the good things to come, and I believe it could be something good has begun. Oh, I've been smiling lately, dreaming about the world as one, and I believe it could be someday it's going to come. 'Cause out on the edge of darkness, there rides a peace train. Oh, peace train, take this country, come take me home again. Now I've been smiling lately, thinking about the good things to come, and I believe it could be something good has begun. Oh, peace train sounding louder, ride on the peace train. Ooh, come on the peace train. Yes, peace train good friends too, 'cause it's getting nearer. It soon will be with you. Come and join the living. It's not so far from you, and it's getting nearer. Soon it will all be true. Oh, peace train sounding louder. Ride on the peace train. Oh, come on, the peace train. Now I've been crying lately, thinking about the world as it is. Why must we go on hating? Why can't we live in bliss? 'Cause out on the edge of darkness, there rides a peace train. Come on, the peace train. This peace train, oh, be rolling. Everyone jump on the peace train. Ooh. Come on, come on, come on. Yes, come on, peace train. Hey, yes, it's the peace train.
Psychic Radio is now CBS Radio's The Sky. Back to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno. Call now 248-545-SOUL. New skyradio.com.
And we're speaking with our guest, Jim Kelly of Western New York, who is a photographer of the paranormal par excellence, and to the point where every time he goes out and takes a picture, he gets something strange in it. And so, Jim, we're wondering, when you have some sort of contact, you know, you said some things came back to your house at one point, and that's a danger with these people who go out ghost hunting as if they're trying to catch butterflies. I mean, we're very nervous about that and do not encourage it. How do you know what you see is what you get? In other words, how do you know that? And this is, and I know you're a man who has experience at this, and we always warn that you have to be very careful what you're dealing with, because you don't know if what it's telling you is the truth. You don't know if it's what it appears to be, and it can be very misleading and destructive and even outright dangerous. What say you on that? Have you ever had an experience where you thought you were dealing with something, even in a photograph, and it turned out to be something else?
No, but I was warned about that when I had a meeting with the first medium, that this whole deal could have been the other way around. I could have had bad things had followed me. So luckily for me, I didn't. Yeah.
How do you deal a lot with mediums and psychics, or do you consider yourself to be one?
No, I do not consider myself to be one. But the first one we saw, we took her a picture that I had taken of the vortex, and right across from the vortex is what they have. It's called a stepping stone. We're back in the 1800s. The stagecoaches and horses would pull up, and people would get down off of that. I showed her that photo, and that one, by the way, has a woman's face coming right out of the side of the rock. And when she touched that one, she got sick to her stomach, very lightheaded, and had to put it back down on the table for a minute to get her composure. And she said she felt more energy on that side of the road than she did where the actual vortex is, which is 30 feet from that.
Mm. Okay, I can tell you some of the things that happened to me sometime, or not me, but both of us in certain situations that would kind of knock your socks off too. I'm just wondering if your interpretation of this as well. Let me go back to something you said. You had a lot of photographs, and as evidence, you feel that there is an afterlife. And people have felt comforted by this, and I can accept that. But what bothers me is what makes you think these are dead people? What makes anybody think these are dead people? I think that's maybe the only explanation we can think of. I don't know.
Well, that's a good question. Yeah.
I mean, as I say, in my first case, I didn't run into any what I felt were dead people at all. They were very active.
Because what I'm photographing is not fog, mist, half people or half the bodies. It's their whole body with whatever period in time clothes they had on it, that time is what I'm getting.
Well, that's what struck me, and a lot of those cases was maybe it's more to do with time and some of the more extreme versions of physics than it is with any kind of death. If you look at modern physics now with the whole multiverse idea, death is impossible, even for the body, because you're alive in so many worlds. And theologically, I can see where, I don't know if you grew up as a Roman Catholic, I guess you did. I don't know if you had nuns in school, but they say, God created the universe out of love for us.
Right.
Well, how much more love could be expressed than creating every possible version of us and every possible version of events? I mean, that's what seemed to strike me. So there we have it. Anyway, have you ever, and we talked about this a little bit during the break, have you ever encountered what I suppose we both might call multiversal creatures or transdimensional, whatever inadequate term we can use, aside from just humans in photographs? Have you encountered strange animals? Or can you tell us about some of those?
I've got some pig face things. I've got some very nasty looking distorted faces. In fact, I got one on my camera that I haven't got blown up yet. But yes.
And you described one with beaks?
There's one that's got pointed ears. It's got a pig face.
Yeah, this pig face kind of thing is something the Warrens, Ed and Lorraine Warren, were always talking about.
Yes.
When I was with it, and that you'd get in. Now, I never encountered that myself, but they were involved.
Yeah, I've got a good picture of that.
Really? Okay. Well, I've seen them, but I mean, I've never gotten one myself. How about nice things? You ever encountered nice, non-human creatures in your photos?
Nice things? I get a lot of dogs, cats, lion-type looking faces in my pictures.
And I can hear half the audience going, aha, so there must be afterlife for animals.
I believe that, absolutely.
We don't see it as an afterlife. We see it as just plain life. I mean,
but I'll tell you one thing that I've noticed since I've been doing this. In the very beginning, the characters in my photographs, they would hide. I would have to maybe turn the picture upside down or sideways, and then I can see them. And now that's something of the past. Now they're just looking right straight at me. And that's what's bothering me about my last couple of months. My photographs, like I mentioned earlier, they're getting more and more religious looking. Now, I don't know if somebody's trying to tell me something upstairs or what's going on, but
that's interesting.
I don't know where it's going to lead me or where it's going to end, but I'll see it through one way or the other.
So you feel that whatever's in the photo knows that you're there?
Oh yeah, I really believe that. Yeah.
See, I rarely get that.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how much you know about us, or you ever heard us on Coast, but we talk about we really went out on a limb last time we were on there. We talked about the next few years, what we see. Now this is no kind of prophecy or revelation or anything like that. It's just impressions and feelings, observations, and that sort of thing. The next few years just do not, in our particular realm of the corner of the multiverse here, just do not seem to be, to me, that terrific. I don't know. Some of this comes from my military background and analysis sometimes. Not that I was some big cheese or anything, but looking at the political situation, doesn't look too good. You've got a lot of overwhelming problems that our leaders in most countries just do not seem to be able to grasp or handle. You have nuclear weapons all over the place. I know that there were at least 100, I believe it's 100 satchel-sized nuclear devices from the old Soviet Union.
And if you look at it biblically, you can see all the pieces starting to fit together now, how it's supposed to be.
Well, you can. And, I don't know if the biblical scenario is exactly right, but it's something like it probably is. I mean, every tradition has some kind of thing like that. But I mean, not to get nuts here, but I don't know. I might say that if your interpretation of what you're getting is correct, and if these are really, some sort of positive creatures, and I will tell you that then you may be right. And I'll tell you that we do run into all sorts of what we believe are multiversal neighbors. I wouldn't say that they're from heaven or anything. And maybe, I guess whatever that may mean, we all hopefully are. But the impression that I'm getting is that they are just as nervous as we are about what's happening sort of in the multiversal neighborhood. And this goes back to, I suppose, what you might biblically call demons. We call them parasites. I find their theology is not quite the same as ours, or maybe even doesn't even exist.
Yeah, right.
But in any case, whatever they are, they're not good, and they prey upon us, and that's the thing. And so I'm talking in a roundabout way about sort of agreeing with what you may be seeing there. I think there are communications that are attempting to be made to keep us in touch with one another across these world boundaries and kind of stick together with our neighbors, so to speak. And I think it comes down to that. And a lot of the ones we meet are oblivious, they're neutral or don't care or don't know. Some are negative, some are very positive. There's everything out there, just as there's everything in our own society, So that might be one reason that things are perhaps getting more positive in your photographs. So you're noticing any other patterns in your photography as you go?
I've gotten some material things. I took a picture off a bridge once down into a creek, and lo and behold, right in the middle of that showed up a little A-frame house. And not only was the house there, but it had a light on in it. Then you take the photograph, you turn it sideways, and you got a guy that he looks like Albert Einstein. He's got the white hair down, just like Albert Einstein would look, looking at the house. And this is in the same photograph.
Very interesting. See, we'd say that these are, shots across world boundaries where there really is a house and really is a guy, but that's our interpretation. One of the things that has been kind of interesting, too, is that I was telling you about Jerry Warner. Now, Jerry's been on the show, and I'll never get over this as long as I live. He has an ability similar to yours, but he gets all sorts of very interesting cloud-like or smoke-like creatures. And I just knowing what I do about photography, which is not everything, but I have been professionally trained in it. Yeah. I just didn't interpret that as somebody faking smoke art, as sometimes is done, or this kind of thing. Mainly because the first one that he sent me was a creature I had actually encountered, as I mentioned during the break, a very beautiful lion-like creature with a beautiful face and a very positive aura of energy around it. And actually encountered at our old place in Cumberland, Rhode Island, one of the evenings I was out at, there's a little hut we had out there, a little, almost like a little cabin that I used for prayer and meditation. And I came out one evening and ran right into one of these beautiful creatures. We're standing right there in the woods. And it kind of looked at me very peacefully and then turned and walked away. I could hear its footsteps in the leaves and everything else. So if you ever get anything like that, let us know if you would. And that would be great. So, but there do seem to be patterns among people such as yourself. Other people are telling us they are getting different kinds of images now, more positive images. Many people who encounter, I suppose, shamanic people, who encounter creatures are encountering different ones, and there seems to be sort of a trend toward something that's coming, And I don't know what it is, but I tend to suspect it's some kind of a thing that if you're aware of it, you'll be better off. But in any case, we are coming up on another break. You're listening to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Benino on CBS News Sky Radio. Stick with us. We'll be right back with Jim Kelly.
Enlighten, empower, enrich. This is CBS Radio's The New Sky. New horizons, no boundaries.
Swung from It's time. It's time. It's time. It's time.
Psychic Radio is now CBS Radio's The Sky. Back to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno. Call now 248-545-SOUL. New skyradio.com. Believe.
Welcome back to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno. I'm Ben, and to my left is Paul. And with us we have Jim Kelly. And we're talking of, well, the paranormal in general, the implications of seeing all these interesting beings. Now, there's actually one question I forgot to ask, and I just looked at a note that I made. And what is the Hinsdale Haunted House? I never asked that at the beginning of the show. Yeah, what exactly is it? What happens there? Like, what's the story about that place?
The spirits still linger around up there. Back in the late 1700s, early 1800s, it was a stagecoach route. And these people were getting killed. They were taking them up the road and putting them in the bottom of this house in like a stairwell type of thing. And as time went by, nobody knew, the houses. Nobody knew they were there. And then that's where Alphonsus from St. Bonaventure came up with Alex Tanis, and he said some of them died naturally, but most of them were murdered. They were murdered because of either the money they had at the time, the jewelry, or the furs they may have had for sale, and they were stuffing these bodies up in the house. And these souls were not at rest. And there was one girl in particular, probably in her 20s, that did not want to leave. Well, they finally exorcised her and got her out of the house. But then, like I said earlier, months later, the whole thing just started up again. And I believe that girl that was in the house, that I've got her on video wandering around down by the vortex, because it sure sounds very familiar as how they described her as she was back then.
So Father Alphonsus exorcised someone he thought was human?
Yes.
That would have got him... that's not really theological. That would have gotten him in serious trouble.
He blessed the whole house. And
pray for people.
Yeah.
I mean, from that point of view. Well, that's interesting. I never heard that before. I didn't know him well. I sort of met him through the Warrens. But in any case, the whole notion of... because our interpretation of that situation would be that when you have terrible trauma of that kind, it sends out echoes through space-time and across various worlds, and when you're in one, you might pick up the... I've never found that it's a ghost. I found it's the actual person at the actual time having the actual event. And but that's my interpretation. Let's get
now
into...
They've turned the house into an active paranormal thing. People can go up there, stay overnight, do their own investigations.
That's just wonderful. Because that just makes it worse if there really is anything going on.
Well, that's what I thought about
That's a terrible mistake.
That exact thought, yes.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you have to be over 60 to really see the dangers. I don't know.
Yeah.
But in any case, I wanted to ask you, only got a few minutes left, I wanted to ask you about orbs. How many photos, what percentage of your photos would you say are entirely orbs, or at least have orbs in them?
Oh, very small.
As opposed to guys waving from the 19th century or something.
I probably got about 10 photographs with orbs in them.
Okay. All right.
And then in the one photo, there's also a thing that almost looks like a dinosaur. It's got the shiny nose coming down with the two big black eyes, and that's one of the things that John Sable is going to look at when he comes back here at the end of the month.
Funny you bring that up. We had some listeners from Australia write that they were a retired couple about our age, looking out the window saying they actually saw a dinosaur walk by their window, much to their surprise.
Yeah.
And kind of lived not in the outback, but not in a time. It was a very interesting note, and they are familiar with our theories and figured they were having a time warp kind of thing.
Yeah.
But in any case, so as far as what orbs may be, our interpretation is that they are, except because you see faces in them. I think generally they are either looks across the boundaries or plasma-based life forms, something that astrobiologists have speculated about. plasma-based life forms that feed around world boundaries. So I don't know. I guess what your interpretation is they're spirits, or I mean, anybody could be right.
I'd say they're spirits because of some of the faces that I've seen them trying to manifest in, that there's some kind of, there's something more there, you know.
Okay.
But,
All right.
I'm really happy that you guys had me on tonight, because that puts me with some real elite company, the past guests that you've had. I've talked to Stanton Friedman before on some of my photos. When this first all started, you know, I'd talk to him, and he says, well, I'm the UFO thing. I says, yeah, I know, and I was telling him what I had and stuff, and he says, well, you ought to get a hold of this person, get a hold of that person. Kind of went from there.
Oh, you know Stan Friedman?
Oh, yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we'll have to get in. Have you done much work on UFOs?
I was always interested in it, yeah. Never got any pictures of anything like, you know, that.
Interesting. Well, the possibility for another show. We'll be seeing Stan in a few, next month at the New England UFO Conference, and you should enter the contest. So, anyway, so Jim Kelly, thank you very much. And would you tell us once more about your website and a few words about what you've got planned in the future?
Okay, my website is www.livingwiththeparanormal.weebly.com. My email address is paranormaljim@roadrunner.com. And I'll probably continue on doing what I've been doing, but maybe just slow it down a little bit, or get any phone calls of anybody that, you know, thinks I'm off my rocker and would like to see him. Hey, they're more than welcome to look at my photographs.
Well, we hope to see them ourselves very soon.
Oh,
Jim,
that would be nice.
Excellent. Well, Jim, it's been a pleasure, and thank you so much. We'll be in touch off the air, I'm sure.
All righty, thank you.
Okay, very good.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now. Okay, Jim Keller, everybody. Now, on December 8th, we are scheduled to do our 500th show. Boy, time flies when you're having fun. And that will be right here on CBS New Sky. We'd like to hear your suggestions for what you would like us to do with that show. Let us know which guest you might like to have back, or whether you'd like Ben and I to hit a certain paranormal subject from our own experiences we sometimes do. Or
have a different guest altogether.
Yep, someone we might not have had on before. So let us know on the Behind the Paranormal show page on Facebook. We're trying to get people to use that to communicate with us, because the form on our site can't be used anymore for complicated reasons. So people are just doing.
And my email barely works, so.
Yeah, well, we're working. We have these technical glitches.
Yeah.
So or you can drop me an email. Mine works at paul@behindtheparanormal.com or ben@behindtheparanormal.com.
I can receive email, but I can't answer.
Yeah, so at least you're communicating one way.
Yes.
Like a half a medium.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. Or you can write to us, plain old snail mail at Behind the Paranormal Radio and TV, care of WOON 1240 AM, 985 Park Avenue, Woonsocket, Rhode Island. And we were running out of time here, so.
Well, you can visit our websites, behindtheparanormal.com, where you can find over 500 free podcasts of all our past shows. Also, check out our site at www.newenglandghosts.com, where you can find case studies, photos, along with articles by my dad.
And many thanks to our producer, Brandon Jackson. And next week we will welcome back our old friend John Burroughs, who has just co-authored a book on the Rendlesham Forest UFO case, to which he was an eyewitness. He's also going to tell us about what he's gone through as a veteran, the U.S. Air Force, in the wake of that case. In the meantime, tune into our Boston and Providence Drive Time show on WOON 1240 AM and ONWorldwide.com at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 Pacific every Monday.
Alrighty, so we're going to leave you with a quote this evening after switching around our lines from Greek philosopher Epictetus. Alright, there is only one way to happiness, and that is to cease worrying about things which are beyond the power of our will.
I'm Paul Eno.
And I'm Ben Eno, and thanks for joining us on our great cosmic journey, and we shall see you next time.